Welcome to Midnight Murmurs, where darkness never sleeps, and the stories, they're never just stories. Tonight, we bring you midnight horrors, short, spine-chilling tales, whispered just for you. The old house creaked. Shadows danced on the walls. A cold wind howled outside, rattling the windows. 10-year-old Billy stared at the attic door. It was always locked. His parents forbade him from going near it. Tonight, curiosity got the better of him. He crept up the stairs, each step groaning under his weight. The doorknob was ice cold. He turned it slowly. The door creaked open. The attic was filled with dust and cobwebs. It was a place long forgotten, where time seemed to stand still. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and decay, and the only sound was the occasional creak of the floorboards. Billy coughed, covering his mouth. The dust was overwhelming, making it hard to breathe. He had always been curious about the attic, but now he wondered if it was a mistake to come up here alone. A single beam of moonlight illuminated a dusty rocking chair. It stood out in the darkness, almost as if it was waiting for someone. The chair creaked slightly, swaying back and forth as if moved by an unseen hand, and clutched in its wooden arms a porcelain doll. The doll was old, with a cracked face and faded clothes. It looked like it had been sitting there for decades, untouched and forgotten. Its eyes were wide open, staring right at him. Billy slowly approached, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was watching him, its gaze following his every move. The doll seemed to watch him, its head turning as he moved. It was as if it was alive, aware of his presence. Billy's hand trembled as he reached out to touch it, unsure of what would happen next. He reached out to touch it. The air around him grew colder, and he could feel a chill run down his spine. His fingers brushed against the doll's cold porcelain skin, and he felt a strange sensation like a jolt of electricity. And that's when he heard it, a faint whisper, "Help me." The voice was soft, almost pleading. Billy's eyes widened in shock and he pulled his hand back quickly. The whisper echoed in his mind, leaving him with a sense of dread and curiosity. Billy froze. The attic was dark and filled with shadows that seemed to move on their own. Every creak of the old wooden floor sent shivers down his spine. He could hear the wind howling outside, but inside it was eerily silent. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat louder than the last. It felt like it might burst out at any moment. He tried to calm himself, but the fear was overwhelming. He looked around the attic but saw nothing. The dim light from the single bulb cast long, eerie shadows. He squinted, trying to make out any shapes or figures in the darkness. He turned back to the doll. "Who's there?" he squeaked, his voice barely above a whisper. The doll's head tilted slowly, its glassy eyes reflecting the dim light. "He trapped me," it whispered, its voice raspy and filled with sorrow. "In this doll." Billy's eyes widened in horror. He could feel the cold sweat forming on his forehead. Suddenly, the rocking chair in the corner began to move. It creaked as it rocked back and forth, the sound echoing in the silent attic. Back and forth, faster and faster. The chair seemed to have a life of its own, moving with an unnatural speed. The doll's head snapped up, its eyes fixing on Billy. "He's coming!" it shrieked, its voice filled with panic and urgency. Billy stumbled back, his blood turning to ice. He could feel the terror gripping his heart, making it hard to breathe. He knew he had to get out of there, but his legs felt like they were made of lead. Billy ran to the door, his heart pounding in his ears. He could barely hear anything over the deafening thud of his own heartbeat. The shadows seemed to stretch and reach for him, making his flight even more desperate. Every step felt like it took an eternity, and the hallway seemed to grow longer with each stride. He fumbled with the doorknob, his sweaty palms slipping as he tried to turn it. Panic surged through him, making his movements clumsy and frantic. Finally, with a desperate twist, he managed to wrench it open, the door creaking ominously as it swung wide. As he scrambled out, he heard a deep voice boom from the attic. "Where are you going, son?" The voice was chilling, resonating with a power that made Billy's blood run cold. It was a voice he had hoped never to hear again, a voice that haunted his nightmares. Billy stared, terrified, at his father. The man stood in the doorway, his eyes dark and unreadable. There was something different about him, something that made Billy's skin crawl. He wanted to run, to hide, but his legs felt like they were made of lead. The deep voice, the words. It all sounded exactly like the doll's whispers, that sinister doll that had been a source of so many sleepless nights. He had always thought it was the doll that was cursed, that it was the source of the evil whispers. A chill ran down his spine. He had been wrong. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. It wasn't the doll that was the true source of the terror. The doll was merely a conduit, a vessel for something far more sinister. It wasn't the doll that was trapped. It was something else, something that had now found a new voice, a new way to instill fear. And that voice, that terrifying voice, belonged to his father.